But yeah, so now we're going to go on to all time. Since Sean led it off with current, I'll start with my fifth all time favorite player. Remember, I was born in '96. So most of these are going to be from like basically 2002 and on. But actually, a more current player probably is my number five is Russell Westbrook. Kind of like with Jimmy Butler, you can never say Russell Westbrook didn't give his all because I feel like every game gives it his all, and just an electric player to watch. If I'm sure everyone knows, and especially as a Spurs fan, like it's just I was always on edge on both sides of the court when playing the Thunder because you don't know if Russell's just gonna jump a passing lane, take that steal, and just yam it down, and it just gains all the momentum for the Thunder, or on the offensive end, he just blows by somebody and just dunks on them. Um, and we all know about the triple doubles. I don't care, and you can say he stat pads or whatever, but I truly believe Russell just wants to win, and he doesn't care about it. He just does whatever he can to win. For better or for worse, and I just love that about him. And in my eyes, he's definitely a Hall of Famer. And I know Stephen A. had some harsh things to say about him, but I think he should go down as at least in the conversation for top five, top 10 point guards of all time. But yeah, Russell Westbrook, my number five. What about you, John?
Well, Russell Westbrook, he's probably one of my honorable mentions. Like I said earlier, I almost put him on both of my lists,
Yeah,
but I mean, like you said, he just wants to win. But I think the key there is he wants to win his way. I mean, just remember the, the big reason that a lot of people were mad at Kevin Durant was obviously he joined the team to beat them, but he didn't even tell Russell Westbrook. He just
yeah.
kind of left,
Russell had
and
to find
Russell
out the
found
way
out
everyone else did.
exactly like through the media, online, TV, everything. So and and in that situation, it was also a time where Russell was coming up on a potential free agency the next year, and there's a lot of teams that were interested, up and coming teams. I even know that my Celtics were interested in getting his services. But it was pretty quickly after that that Russell Westbrook then re-signed the Thunder, who at that time looked like they were trending pretty hard downwards. I mean, Durant had just left, Harden was traded, before that season, so it was it was not the brightest time in OKC, and Westbrook doubled down and said, "Nope, this is my team. I don't care about the super team crap that Durant's trying to pull. I don't care about all that stuff. I don't want to win the easy way. I want to go out and win the way that I want to win." And so I respect that loyalty, like we've talked about Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum and some of these guys. I just love those kind of players because it's a refreshing mentality that we don't really have from a lot of people these days, especially with some of the buyout stuff that happened this season and all the different super teams get formed and all that. So, but my number five all time, um, former Celtic, still playing in the league. Um, I think he was one of the more underrated key pieces of that 2008 championship roster. It's Mr. Rajon Rondo. I think that he's one of the greatest passers of his generation. Really crafty, really good defender, and like I said, I think the most underrated piece of that Celtics team. A lot of people say that that was sort of the start of the Big Three era was that Celtics team. Um, but I mean, Rondo was that fourth piece that a lot of people tend to forget about. Obviously, they had Ray Allen, they had Paul Pierce, they had Kevin Garnett, but Ray Allen to me was really the piece that kept everything going because he was the guy who facilitated, he was the guy who set everything up, he was the guy who ran the offense that those guys flowed into. So I love Rajon Rondo. Obviously, he's had some, you know, different, run-ins with coaches and teams and attitude problems and all that kind of stuff. But Rondo, to me, he just has that sort of old school mentality of like, I just want to beat you, and almost like a Jimmy Butler, but without the Jimmy Butler like talent and like leadership as much. Like similar mentality and attitude, but like I said, not the leadership aspect. Because Jimmy also is able to like lead the guys around him. Rondo, I don't think he's a bad leader, but yeah, to me, I've just always loved how crafty he is. The staple, fake behind the back pass into the layup because he was just so deadly at the behind the back pass that he started being able to pull that off. Yeah, I just love the creativity that he brought to the game, and he's my number five. My number four is a guy whose jersey I almost wore, but I didn't. Um, and it's a guy who, I mean, I think he's one of the most iconic players in league history. I think all time he's one of the best guards to ever play. It's Mr. Allen Iverson. I think that he was just one of those era-defining players. Obviously, he's one of those names that people point to when they talk about a guy carrying a really bad team to a place that they shouldn't have been. Because that 76ers roster that went to the finals and went against that Kobe and Shaq Lakers team. I mean, realistically, they had no business being there. But just the greatness of Allen Iverson, the scoring prowess, the underrated defense, and the steals and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, I just think that Allen Iverson, he's truly an icon in the basketball world. Even his jersey, his cornrows, all that kind of stuff. I mean, I dressed up for him as a Halloween one year. Which I had long hair, so I was able to do the cornrows back then. But anyway, yeah, I love Allen Iverson. I love his crossover, the crazy handles. Everybody talks about him and Kyrie. Obviously, I just think different eras. Kyrie, he just does way more fancy stuff, a lot less crazy defense. Back when Iverson played, you did all fancy stuff. Somebody could like clobber you. But I just love Allen Iverson. I love his crossover. I mean, that clip of him doing it on Michael Jordan, it just looks so easy. It looks so predictable and like he should have got it, but because of the speed that he had, the deadliness that he had to just run right by you, they had to bite the moment he did any sort of hesitation or looked one way or whatever. So I really like Allen Iverson. Like I said, I wish that he got a ring. Obviously, there was rumors that he was potentially going to get traded or something to the Lakers with Kobe and Shaq. It never ended up happening. But yeah, I think that if he had a ring, he'd be a lot more appreciated when it comes to people's all-time lists.
Yeah, and just in regards to Iverson, yeah, one of the players I did like to watch. Unfortunately, just didn't. I think initially just didn't have a long enough career. Maybe that was his size thing. Yeah, maybe that was attitude because apparently he rubbed some people off the wrong way. But I will say in regards to him, I mean basically, I don't want to disrespect anybody on that Sixers team, but they would not be there would not have even been there without Iverson. So and of course they would have been Shaq and Kobe and Phil, and it was just an uphill battle. But only other rule, it's not really Iverson himself. I remember. I think I like a few like 2K12. I remember he was like that was a historic team. I played my cousin, and I think I scored all the points with Allen Iverson except for like four. It was like 56 out of 52 out of 56, and I still beat him. So yeah,
I mean, with that 76ers team, that's pretty much what you had to do. Like
I
they
mean,
had
but
old Dikembe Mutombo, Eric Snow,
yeah, like
like
and
they had
like
nobody.
that's a perfect representation of the team, though. I mean, not that, it
Yep.
was just all relying on Allen Iverson, and it's just unfortunate that they never really got the pieces around him to make things better. So
Right.
yeah, so Iverson was your four, three,
He's my fourth.
fourth. Okay, do you want to do? Okay, sorry. So
So
that's
I
my
did.
turn.
You did your fifth. Yeah.
Okay,
You do your
I'm
fourth and
messing up
third
the
now.
snake draft. Okay, man, this is gonna be tough. All right, so number four. Hated playing once again. Another player I hated playing up against, but I had to respect his game. I loved his game. Steve Nash, point guard of the Phoenix Suns. Like kind of my other common themes. I mean, as everyone knows, crafty guy, great finisher, amazing passer, and just an amazing offensive player. I mean, what could Steve Nash not do that almost any guard the guard couldn't do? I mean, besides dunk and all that, but still, could finish, could shoot, facilitate for others, lead the offense. Solid enough on defense. I mean, kind of like how you mentioned for Rondo, just high IQ player. Like it was just he just understood the game very well, and in the midst of the game too, which is hard to do. But yeah, it's just a great competitor. Steve wanted to be one of those guys, kind of like you mentioned with AI. You wish he got a ring, and he kind of deserved a ring, but unfortunately, he was stuck in the West, ran to buzzsaws like the Lakers, and just my Spurs a couple of times, and then I think the Mavs that one year that they went to the finals. So yeah, I love Stevie. Shout out to Canada, and also shout out to his Brooklyn Nets. I'm glad that he's got a head coaching gig and that it's working out. But yeah, Steve Nash at four. It was tough between him and Russell, but I went with him at four. And this next one, it was really tough for me. This is really 2B, not as opposed to 3. And I'm probably gonna get flamed for this a little bit, but it's Tim Duncan at number 3, and it's just tough. Um, yeah, but Timmy, I mean, what can you, great defender, great leader in his own way, in that led by example, just the stoic presence that exemplified what the Spurs, basically what we still are. Um, I mean, and it's funny because I wasn't until I watched like a really old game, like an 03, 04 game. But I had the image of Tim Duncan in the 2010s, unathletic, just IQ, crafty, big man. But then went back and watched the 03, 04, and he can move. I mean, he was agile.
Yep.
If you forget that, he could dribble a little bit and do that. And it was just funny because I remember, I think I put in our group chat. I think I was watching the '05 finals, one of the games, and literally every offensive possession, it was, all right, get Timmy, post up. We're giving you the ball. Okay, it's not good. We'll pass around. All right, give the ball back to Timmy. We're gonna post up again. I mean, granted, it was that kind of era style, but the fact that he was still able to do that, and we were still able to win championships. I mean, he still almost got that. I think a quadruple double in the '03 finals to close out against the Nets. I think it took a block away from him or something, which would have been amazing. But yeah, I mean, Tim Duncan, amazing player on both ends. It was really hard to put out number three, but this is more of like my favorite watches. But obviously, greatest power forward of all time. I met him at Staples once. No, I did not get an autograph for picture with him, unfortunately. But yeah, it was really tough to put him at technically three, but more like 2B for me. So that's my third person on my list, and I know if my stepdad sees this, he's gonna text me. So I can't wait for that.
Because you didn't put him high enough.
I didn't put him high enough. He's gonna be, how are you gonna put this guy at 2 over Timmy? You're not a real Spurs fan, so sorry, but go ahead. What are your 3 and 2, John?
All right, my number 3. I didn't really start to like him until later in his career, probably because I don't know, when I was younger, I didn't know a ton of the teams in the NBA. Like I knew them, but I didn't like follow the whole league
Yeah.
as in general, and outside of the Celtics really until pretty much when this guy hit the Knicks. But it is Mr. Carmelo Anthony. Um, I mean, you could probably tell I like guys with cornrows. It's a cool haircut to me. I liked Kawhi Leonard before he got all weird. Anyway, uh, yeah, Carmelo Anthony, to me, he's just one of the most exciting players to watch offensively. Obviously, not a really good defender, but a solid rebounder. Offensively, I mean, he's one of the most complete forwards we've ever seen. Really good post game, can handle the rock, can create his own shot. Sorry, offensively, when it comes to scoring, he was an okay creator for his teammates. Wasn't but that wasn't his role. He wasn't expected to do that. He wasn't LeBron James or anything. Um, but yeah, even dating back to college, I mean, he was just a big time player. Him and Syracuse had that one awesome run to the championship. He's another one of those players that I think a lot of people really wish that he got a title. Um, I remember though so the first exposure I had to Carmelo Anthony was NBA Live 2005, and he
Oh
was on
yeah.
the cover, and it was when he was on the Nuggets, and because he was on the cover, I would use them all the time, and I would score like 200 points with just him. Because I was a little kid. You're playing on like the lowest difficulty,
Rookie.
crazy long quarters, and you're
Yeah.
just like shooting everything, and it goes in. But I thought he was really cool because of his haircut, and I could score so many points with him. But then once I like really started following the NBA, it was pretty much towards the end of his Nuggets career, and then obviously on to the Knicks. And that's when I really started to like him even more, just because he was exciting for me to watch. I mean, I think back to that one game against the Bulls where he just was so cold blooded, walked up in Luau Deng's face and just drained the game winning three, throws the fingers to the forehead, and like that was it. And so I mean, as you can see with some of the old players that I talked about, like Damian Lillard and Tatum and all that, I really like when guys like they're that crunch time killer. So Melo was that. He was just like I said, he was one of those complete offensive players. And to me, scoring was just it was so fun to watch him score because he could do it in the post, he could do it from the 3 point line, he would pull up on anybody, all that kind of stuff. So my number 3, Carmelo Anthony. My number 2, um, Celtics fans might be a little upset, sort of like how you had Duncan at 3, how I have this guy at 2, and you can't tell, but this poster right over here, it's blurred
By the
out, but
way,
this is
you're
him.
frozen. So again, so
Oh, well, okay. Well, I mean, you can see the poster. It's the big poster on the side of me. It's Mr. Kevin Garnett.
put my mouse
Um,
over there for people to know.
he wasn't a Celtic for too long. I remember initially he didn't want to get traded there. They stunk before him and Ray Allen showed up. It was Paul Pierce, it was Doc Rivers. There just wasn't a whole lot going on there. But when they got him, they got Ray Allen. They immediately made a huge impact, won the title. Obviously,
You're back, by the
he
way.
became okay, great. He became one of the all-time Celtics greats. Just in a year. Obviously had a solid run after that, and they went to another finals, lost to Kobe. But yeah, to me, Kevin Garnett, just the mentality that he had, the bully ball that he played. He didn't want to be your friend. He wanted to beat you, and he wanted to beat you while trash talking you and make you feel like you were the worst. And I just think that's sort of a mentality that we've lost these days with a lot of yeah, I mean, he even criticized the current day NBA about how like everybody wants to be friends after the game. They're all like dapping each other up and talking and all that kind of stuff. And he was like, back in his day, we wanted to beat you, and then if we lost to you, we walked off the court and we were pissed about it, and we didn't like you, and nobody wanted to be friends with you because you're the enemy. And so I just love that mentality that he brought to basketball. Obviously, off the court and stuff, he's friends with all of these kind of guys, and they all respect him and stuff. But everybody has a story of Kevin Garnett like just being a jerk to them when they were on the court. I love Joakim Noah's story about how he was a huge Kevin Garnett fan, got into the league, and they were like, Garnett was like posting him up, and he was like, he did some move on him, and he told Garnett like, "Hey, you got to teach me that move sometime." And Garnett was like, "Get the f off of me." And you it's like you don't see that nowadays. Nowadays, all these it's all like fun and they're respecting each other and all that stuff. But Garnett, he just had a different like warlike mentality. Uh, and yeah, there's the story of like when he made Big Baby Davis cry in practice, but Big Baby Davis earned Garnett's respect that day because he did what he had to do, and then he came back and he kept fighting on the court, and Garnett was like, "That's a guy that I respect." That he got it out, and then we kept battling. So yeah, I just love Garnett's mentality. I mean, the iconic, stanchion pregame stuff where he like bangs his head on it and all that stuff. He just had an intensity that I loved. And so yeah, Kevin Garnett, to me, he's my favorite Celtic of all time. To some people, you got to have a longer stint, so it'd be a Paul Pierce, it would be a Larry Bird, all those kind of guys. But I mean, I'm a little biased because, like you said, with you being born '96, I'm born '97. I'm younger. I didn't get to see Larry Bird and all those kind of
Before
guys
our time.
play. Yeah, so I like Larry Bird and all that stuff. I love his mustache. But anyway, Garnett, he was the guy that I got to watch him win a championship with my team, and I loved his intensity. So yeah, Garnett, he's my number two. Who is you got two and number one, right? Still left. Who are your top two?
Um, so yeah, real quick.
Which real quick, I gotta plug my computer in because it's about to die.
Okay, while you
So
do
you,
that,
you can keep going.
I will mention I was regards to Duncan and Garnett. I didn't know this, but I love how Kevin would talk about um Garnett. I think he mentioned like in an interview, like he's like, yeah, Tim Duncan. I talked trash to everybody, as John just mentioned. I talked trash to everybody, but Tim Duncan was one guy who I hated going up against because I think he said like Timmy, he would just say, actually, I'm gonna save the story for John. All
Did
right,
you
so
pause it?
yeah, we're back now. I got it all back. I just wanted to say the story because I'm pretty sure you've heard of it. But when Garnett mentioned, like, I think they're talking about who is the people, people that you hated trash talk or hated going up against. I forgot the exact question. And Garnett goes, I think it was like, I forgot what podcast. But anyway, Garnett goes, yeah, I hated going up against Tim Duncan, because he would just say snide little remarks. He'd be like, he'd hit you with the post move and say, gotcha. Just things like that. And like, especially to imagine a guy like Cameron Garnett. And we heard the story too. I mean, this is the story of Draymond when he said, "Yeah, I tried to walk up to Tim Duncan and talk trash to him, and Tim Duncan just looked at me, and I know never talk trash to Tim Duncan again." So I just love the stories of those two. But number two,
Just that's like the most raw in your face intensity
and then
possible,
Timmy just
and
gives
then
him the
the
blank
and then the
stare.
most like reserved intensity possible, like no emotion, just looks at you and then gives you this little gotcha. Like that guy, that's uh man,
And like I love
when
how
they
like
played together, those battles were awesome to see.
yeah, and I love how like Timmy too, like off the court, he's just like a zany eccentric guy. He has his own custom car shops. He has a clown
Got
tattoo on his
hair all of a
back.
sudden.
He got the dreads. He's like kind of doing UFC training stuff, like kickboxing and all that. Yeah, just yeah, I feel like Timmy just does Timmy, and I love that. But number two, once again, this is really tough. Basically, 2A, Steph Curry, just kind of like CJ, just obviously better. But yeah, Steph Curry, just the deadliness. I mean, I remember watching that iconic, against it was a regular season game, but it was against the Thunder, where they pull, get the rebound, goes down the court, like 3 seconds left, and just pulls from like almost the logo, drains it, and does his shoulder thing on the other side. And I remember watching that live. It's just like, what do you do about that as a defender? Um, so yeah, obviously, and then we know everything. It's still a crafty finisher, and just, I mean, love it and you hate it, but cocky. Just when he shoots the threes and just turns around and walks off like he did in the All Star game this year. Um, and yeah, just the way he finishes around the rim and just the confidence he plays with. I love it. And kind of like I mentioned before, with the other guys, crafty with his handle. We've seen him drop guys like Chris Paul and then like it's kind of alluding to my previous point, the circus threes too, not just the crazy ones, like the one against the Pelicans that one year when AD was and then made it where he made it in the corner after he just missed it. And then the one that we all know about where he's like dribbling around and and throws it up, and there's a clip of Steve Kerr watching it live, and he's just like this with his head, and it goes in, and Steve's just like still upset. um, so yeah, Steph at number two, just you gotta love the long ball, the kind of like in the NFL. So it was really tough, but I cannot put him above my number one man. You could probably guess if you're watching on YouTube who it is. I wish we had Charles Barkley here. Ginobili, Manu Ginobili, just crafty. I mean, I'm the king of craftiness in my opinion. Nutmegging people, the original king of the Euro step. Just I really wish he kept his long hair. I feel like it was just fun to watch, and like we mentioned with Westbrook and them, just gave it his all. Granted, he would make some of the greatest plays, and he would make some of the most, oh, Manu, why'd you do that plays? Like the year we lost to the Heat, kept trying to throw the ball across the court, and like 80% of the time, LeBron would just pick it off, or Dwayne Wade. I'm just like, Manu, stop doing that. You're not, you're not in your young 20s anymore where you have the same zip on the ball. But yeah, regardless, I mean, yeah, amazing finisher around the rim. I mean, one of the best moments when he dunked on Bosch in the finals as well. But I think my favorite moment of all time has to be the Harden block, just because of what happened the next game too. Because I don't think James Harden ever recovered from that in that series. The fact that he got blocked by bald Manu Ginobili. I remember the memes afterwards. Someone's like, Harden should shave his beard and give it back, and so Manu can use it to cover his bald spot. Because it was just on top of that game was just a great game too. I mean, that was a back and forth game, but yeah, and then obviously Harden fell apart the next game, got locked up by Jonathan Simmons of all people. But regardless, I mean, and as we all know, Manu, a champion, great competitor, and clutch as heck. So one of my favorite players to watch, and I really wish he got to play more. But I'm glad we got him a few rings. I'm glad he got it. I didn't know he had 2 All Star appearances. Once again, I kind of mentioned with CJ, if he had his own team, after being a few years in the league, I felt like he could have been, had better stats, more renown, but stayed with the Spurs, chose to be a champion, and take that, sacrifice the money and the fame for that. So, and now he's a legend, so it worked out. But yeah, Manu Ginobili, my favorite player, / watch of all time. So, John, I'll leave it up to you. Who is your number one?
Well, before that, Manu, I mean, when I think of him, I just think he had a very unique perspective on basketball. Even thinking about that hardened block, like how many people would just instinctively reach
It's
out for that
risky
from
because of
behind?
all people to
Incredibly
try
risky.
because if you foul Harden and the three, everyone's like, "Why'd you foul Harden?" Of all people, and the greatest, foul drawers of all time. Yeah,
Yep. So, I mean, just really fun player to watch. I mean, I even think back to when y'all beat the Heat. I mean, when he was coming off the bench in that series, it was just he was a game changer. He came in, he was the guy who instantly brought energy to the offense. Was able to just make crazy plays that shouldn't be happening, wild, crazy layups, and this was like old
passes.
Manu.
Yeah,
So yeah, he made stuff happen, and he did that his whole career. And once again, like you said, he chose to be a champion, be a part of something bigger than the money and all that kind of stuff. and you got to respect that it was the team that drafted him. That he stayed put, he stayed loyal, all that kind of stuff. Which I think that's sort of a key thing that we both like a lot, and a lot of players is loyalty, staying with their teams, all that stuff. Um, which is kind of ironic because the guy that I'm about to say is my number one didn't do that. But anyway, my favorite player of all time. I'm wearing his jersey. Also, if you're watching on YouTube, you can see it in the overlay the whole time. You probably saw it coming. Is Mr. Vince Carter. To me, I mean, a lot of people they're gonna say what they want to say about Vince Carter. They'll say he's overrated, whatever. Was never a super key contributor on teams that had success. Whatever you want to say about him, I don't view him as like the greatest player of all time or even close, right? To me, it was just pure entertainment. The most fun I've ever had watching a player was watching Vince Carter because he's one of those guys who, number one, his dunk contest to me is one of the most legendary NBA things ever. It was iconic. The fact that the dominance that he displayed in that dunk contest, that he apparently didn't even prepare these things. Like he just went up and did it, winged it, and he was just amazing. I mean that's like the peak of NBA dunk contest for me. Obviously, the Zach LaVine and Aaron Gordon ones are great. The Michael Jordan, Dominique Wilkins, all that kind of stuff. All these great battles. To me, nothing will ever beat the Vince Carter dunk contest because it was just pure dominance on display. Um, Also, I mean, he was one of those guys. A lot of people they have in-game dunks and they have dunk contest dunks. He didn't have a difference. It was he's a dunker. That's he's gonna go out and just dominate you, and he's gonna do it in embarrassing fashion. He's gonna do the most flashy dunk possible. Even thinking back to that Olympics where he jumped over that dude, I can't remember who they're playing, but he like literally jumped over the
Yeah.
guy, cleared him, and it was a 7-footer. This wasn't some short guy. Cleared a 7-footer and yammed it. He'd poster people in the most disrespectful ways. So I mean, the most exciting plays in basketball to me are a crazy dunk or a block. Vince Carter, he did those crazy dunks, and he did them with a frequency. So, yeah, I mean, he's the most exciting player I've ever seen, and for that, I've just always loved him. Put aside the accomplishments, the teams that he played on, because he didn't even play on any teams that I like. Like he played on the Raptors. I don't really care for the Raptors. But just this all the excitement that he brought to the game. I just loved it. I think he's the greatest dunker of all time. My dad and I have disagreements about that. My dad thinks it's Michael Jordan, but my dad's also older and saw Michael play and saw all that kind of stuff. So, um, yeah, I don't really know what else to say about Vince. I also think he's his game overall is probably a little more underrated, just because a lot of people just kind of think of him as only a dunker, but offensively he was just sort of a powerhouse in his prime. He could shoot really well, obviously really good at driving. He could do crazy layups, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I love Vince Carter. I wish that he was on better teams because I mean, if we look back at the list of teams that he was really on, he wasn't on any really amazing ones outside of that Nets team, I guess, with Jason Kidd. Um, but yeah, I think that he was just such an exciting player for me to watch, and so that's why I love Vince Carter.
Yeah, I mean, one of those guys where maybe if he found a better system or if he had been, with the team that was willing to be patient and build around him, you know, and maybe better coaching too, like we mentioned before, some of these other guys could have had a ring. I think regardless, Hall of Famer, no doubt. So just unfortunate he didn't get that ring, but yeah, definitely an electric player. And I remember he was on the Nets. I got because I knew of him. I remember when he went to the Nets, I was like, oh man, that's a really good pairing. Unfortunately, didn't really work out, between him and Kidd and the Nets. But yeah, still love that. I mean, he killed my Spurs almost that year we won the championship. I mean, when he was with the Mavs, hit that three, I think in Game 6, and that Mavs series ended up being the toughest series of all the ones we played. Um, which I mean, and I don't think they didn't have Rondo then. That's still when they had like JJ Barea and I don't know who else, but
That was old Vince
I,
Carter.
I would say I feel like saying JJ Barea is very vague 'cause he's been there a long time, so that's not a very good description. But it was like what year we went, it's like 2015,
That was
2014,
2014, 15
2014ish.
ish.
Yeah, because the Warriors started their run after that. So, yeah, totally. I mean, yeah, Vince definitely a legend, Hall of Famer. So, I hear it, but yeah, so that'll do it for today. A nice little walk down memory lane, and got to reminisce, got to kind of see what we like to see in basketball. Might have to do this for football. We might have to, might have to do this for just like young players because it's a very good topic. I had a lot of fun with it. I'm sure you did. So y'all can let us know what your current top five is, or your all-time top five is. I don't, you can't say that we're wrong because once again, this is our opinion, and it's not a fact. It's just our opinion. But anyways, as per usual, we appreciate everyone listening and liking stuff and supporting us. And if you don't or just would like to continue to, as usual, our Instagram up the top on YouTube at Shut Up and Ball Pod. Facebook is just Shut Up and Ball. And then Instagram just at Shut Up and Ball. And then if wherever you're listening or watching, just feel free to rate, comment, subscribe, do all that, and we'll try to get back with you or mention it on the next pod. But obviously, next podcast going to be doing NFL, maybe some draft stuff. We'll see. But regardless, I hope everyone has a good Easter weekend. Whether you celebrate or not, just have a good weekend. Enjoy the national championships, both men and women's, maybe this weekend. I know baseball's back. I know John's rooting for his Baylor Bears going up against Gonzaga, so at least we get a really good potential matchup. Very chalky. It was very chalky. But regardless, have a nice weekend, everybody, and stay safe.